Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to In the Real. I'm one of the hosts, Eric.
This is Cheryl.
This is Jen.
Yeah, we got that all worked out, don't we? Sound like a bunch of pros. We've only done this, 5 times now?
Right.
Well, we let off before just a few days ago. This is probably the quickest we've ever done turn on another podcast. From the last one we did, I think it was like 4 fucking months before we got back to it. So this is actually pretty quick. We, just to give a brief recap from things I remember, then you guys can throw something in. We reviewed episodes 1 and 2 of Making a Murder, the Netflix series. And today we are going to plan to do 3, 4, and maybe get into 5. We're going to try to keep this to an hour because we appreciate the 47 of you that have listened, or at least started to listen. Yes. And so we're going to try to be considerate of that and try to, not take up so much of your time during the day. So we're going to try to keep it to an hour or so. And we're going to, just give a quick summary here, get into episode 3, and then turn to 4. And again, maybe hit 5, and maybe we won't even get to 4. I mean, if we're capping on an hour and that's it, then we'll stop at 3. But we've watched 3, the next 3 episodes, 3, 4, and 5, and
6, right?
Did we get?
No.
I don't think we got to.
Oh, sorry,
we were going to do 6 yesterday, but I needed a mental break, so I was actually paying more attention versus getting entertained.
I was all for it.
Yeah,
okay.
you're just.
That's
all
why.
So
That's
you don't
why
do
I
shit
thought.
all day.
Oh boy.
Oh
boy.
That just opened a can of worms.
And who was bored today at work and not me?
Just because I'm efficient.
That's what it is.
Story.
That's what it is.
So,
I'm just not efficient.
Well, I didn't say that. I just said I'm efficient. So anyway, to recap, we went through episode 1 and 2, and from, I guess, summarizing those 2, what I picked up from them was we got to meet Stephen Avery and got a little bit of character content about what kind of person he is.
And the people around him.
Correct. The family members, the sheriff departments, where they live, things like that. That was primarily 1. And then in 2, we kind of got the gist of the legal matters, where the past legal matters were compared to then where the second legal matters came in. And toward the, either halfway through or toward the end, I remember, I think the nephew Brendan, it's not Brandon, right? It is Brendan?
Brendan.
Yep. Mm-hmm. He kind of came into the picture at that point.
Was that in 2?
I could be a little off.
Because I thought
was it just in 3?
I think it was like towards almost the ending of 3.
Right.
Oh, was it? Okay, so I got a little far ahead.
I think we were introduced to him in 3. Like, even if there was maybe a little snippet before 2 ended, we really got to see it in 3. Right. And that's what I'm specifically interested in talking about.
Okay, so there's a prime example from my perspective of getting too far ahead, because those they're starting to mush up together.
Right.
So, and you could be very accurately on describing that we didn't get to him until 3.
And I could be wrong, but that's what I wrote down.
No, it seems like that's more accurate now that you're talking about it. So okay. I don't know. What did you guys have any summaries on 1 and 2 you wanted to mention?
No, not on 1 and 2. I'm ready to move on. So let's
okay
push on to 3.
We kind of read off of my notes primarily last time. So if one of you guys want to kind of take the hit off of yours, and then we'll kind of play off of episode 3 on one of you, and then we'll bring in whoever has notes that aren't crossing or whatnot.
I do have some notes starting from like the beginning of episode 3 that maybe we would touch base on, and then I know that Jenny wanted to get more into the Brendan Dassey as it progressed, the story progressed into that. I think from right off from the start of episode 3 was one of the most prominent notes of the deputy from Brown County. The first scene, I think, is him on stand from saying that the key that was found was not there the first time, and the slippers were moved and before Lang found them.
So it was like a specific note that this deputy remembered. They moved the slippers,
and saying
there was nothing there.
There was not a key there, and I mean, jumping forward to some of my notes, they didn't even find the key until 7 days later.
Not 7 days. 4 days. It was the
7th entry.
Seventh entry.
Or 7. Okay,
sorry. Yeah.
7th or 8th search, right? Was it 7th?
7th entry.
Okay,
that's right. I did write that down. Yep. So that was pretty prominent in my mind. I wrote that down, obviously, for a note. I don't know. Do you guys have anything to?
The guy, I missed his name, but the guy that he was like a professional, case investigator, right? And he's like, you know, it's pretty unethical. He's like, you can't just seize a property and keep it for however long you want it. I mean, there's obviously a limit to that. We didn't research that, but I'd really like to understand that limit. Like,
Right.
how can they possibly... usually the police go in, they search a place, and then they're done.
Right.
And you have your property back.
Right.
They kept this family away for
8 days.
Yeah, 8 days, and within 4 days, they've already done 7 searches.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell is that all about?
Right. Right. I mean, yes, the property was very large, including the auto salvage, but I think that they were like mainly searching his trailer, were they, or were they searching the entire lot?
Even so, they had two sheriff's offices doing it. They
Yeah.
had Manitowoc.
Right. How could
And
it have taken
Calumet.
8 days? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to bring in a lot of details on what you had mentioned there, I think. I feel a lot of details will come up. The Manitowoc Sheriff's Department was bringing in another sheriff's department to stay unbiased because of the lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
However, we're going to discover that all the evidence that was found was still by Manitowoc.
Right.
The other people didn't find anything.
Right.
And I think to your point, Cheryl, that you were talking about in the opening scenes, that and Jen, the guy we can't remember his name, that professional investigator, his commentary that I remember was this was one of the most unprofessional scenes he ever got into, and he's been doing 30 years or some shit.
Something like that.
I might be off on that number, but because his comments to that were, when you were done searching and you deemed the area clear, they come back. You can't just hold the property and go back and search and search and search. That's you do your search and then you declare it clear and you leave it. That's it. You're done.
I think I don't know if he specifically said it, but he kind of alluded to the fact that he thought it was unethical.
Yeah.
I think so.
Absolutely.
See, I had mentioned when you get a search warrant, if I remember his words accurately, going a little verbatim here, was it doesn't give you the right just to hold this place.
Right.
It just gives you the right to go search this place, and once you deem it clear, you leave.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that is some interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But,
and even things like I've heard, like 24-hour search warrant. You know, how do they have an 8-day or like an unlimited time of a search warrant? You know, I don't know if that
I'd love to learn the state statutes about that, because I don't think that's right. And then to have this Calumet officer sit there and say, no, we looked in that area.
Brown County.
Brown County, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, so there's 3 counties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. Am I
For him
mistaken
to
in
sit there and say that wasn't there.
Right.
It was not there.
Right.
And then somehow on the 4th day in the 7th
found.
search,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly it was there, when the sheriff that was overseeing the Manitowoc, sorry, I know I got that wrong the other day, I was calling it Manitowoc, Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, he wasn't in the room with them because he was off taking pictures.
Right.
Suddenly the key appears and Link finds it.
Right.
Well, I mean, since we've been batting at that, I pointed it out a few times. There's a part in there, and I think it is in episode 3. It might be into 4 at that point. That you see the videotape that they're walking by that area, and you can't really see next to that nightstand on the floor. And as obvious as it was when they took the picture of the key sitting there, I've filmed things. Jen, you've filmed things.
Yep.
And I don't give a shit what you're filming. You look around the camera, you would have saw that damn key.
Oh,
because
damn right.
That camera was pointing at that nightstand table, whatever it was there, close enough. You would have saw a key sitting there. There's no way you wouldn't have seen that.
Right.
So now I think they made the statement that they moved the slippers. Well, the first time through there, you would have probably moved those slippers.
Right.
There's no reason why you wouldn't have.
Right.
So, first that film doesn't really show the floor. So did they pick that area because of that? But then they were saying that they photographed the room, and the one guy that said the key was never there. Well, it's obvious they must have already looked there. He knew there was nothing there. So how did it get there around the second time? Because the family was never returned
Right.
up to that 7th search. That place was vacant yet. So how was it that you didn't see it there the first time?
Right.
So there's something very fishy there.
That's the questionable.
Or 2nd, or 3rd, or 4th,
Right.
until the
Right,
7th.
until the
entry.
7th.
That's ridiculous. The way that they tear apart places when they're going through a raid, they flip everything upside down. I mean, everything. Cereal boxes. I think I talked about that last time. And there's not a spot in your house that's not that you can tell has not been gone through. So how could they have missed it 6 times prior? It's just ridiculous.
Right.
There's some other stuff in that room too that we'll talk about when we get to it that we observed, and I think that was well into episode 5 when the fiance returned to the house.
Right.
That was unbelievable, but
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I don't know how many other notes you wanted to go through there, Cheryl. And at that point? Or
there was just a few little like touches. Like I don't know. I thought it was interesting. Poor people lose all the time, which is an extremely good point in the system.
Steven said that from prison on a phone or something.
Yeah, he's like, poor people lose all the time. It's just a given. And it is. It really is. If you look at O.J. Simpson, for a fact, he beat the system. Why? Because he had money. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. I think he did it. Whatever. They hate me, and the only reason why he beat the system is because he had the money to do it. Even in... It's just a given. If you don't have the money to pay for the lawyers, you don't have the money to keep going and over cases and through the court system, you're not gonna get your case off. The way that you feel it is.
I think there's a point to argue that through that settlement that he got, he ended up with some money.
Right.
Not to say that was obviously enough, but even if it was, as it seems, he had more against him than just an accusation. Or even evidence. Evidence that we're concluding at this table being false. People in the legal department being dishonest or just against this person for whatever vendetta they had. I'm not too sure what kind of money you need to get around that.
Right.
So, he had that $400,000 he got out of that settlement, and it didn't do him a bit of good.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is you look at the circumstantial evidences between, just say, the two cases, O.J. Simpson and Stephen Avery's. I mean, the circumstantial evidence between Stephen Avery's case is, it shows that he did not. I don't know. Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
I think I do.
Simpson, I mean, there were so many things pointing to him that, okay, maybe he didn't physically do it himself. This is probably going to promote a lot of hate comments.
No, I actually researched that case very strongly.
Right.
I mean, I went through that. What was it? I think I was into at the time, the crimelibrary.com. It's called something else now. But I went through the whole case because I was like, I'm not going to go through the propaganda. I'm not going to go with what the media is telling me and what I see on TV, because we know TV is sensationalized.
Yeah, absolutely.
I did the research like I did on this case, and to me, hands down, he had the most motive to do it, the most opportunity, and this guy's a superstar. They're athletes. They can get crazy with the fame and the money and think, I can get away with anything, because they pretty much can.
Right.
Just on devil's advocate, then with OJ's situation, there was probably plenty of evidence showing that some of the tools and whatnot utilized, like the gloves thing that didn't fit him or something like that.
That was ridiculous.
It could very well be he didn't physically do some of the damage or even, in fact, all of it himself. But it doesn't take away anything that he could have had it set up to be done. Exactly. And that still puts him at guilt.
Well, like Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain, I watched some documentaries on that, did some research. I'm convinced she did it or set it up. She didn't do it herself. She set it up.
Yeah.
So it just kind of like the feel you get off of what you're seeing and the circumstantial evidence, like you're talking about. You got to take everything into perspective, and that's what I think we're doing. And I just don't feel that way with Steven.
Right.
Yeah, his not just circumstantial, but even the hardcore evidence.
Right.
It was false. I mean, we mapped that out with just the distance and the driving and the timeline.
Yeah.
It was impossible. And I think you had mentioned it that I pointed out with the DNA on the key. And even that investigator pointed that out when they found that key. The only DNA on that damn key was Stephen Avery's.
Right.
You look at my damn keys. You're going to find my DNA all over it, even if a murderer touched them.
Right.
How is mine not going to be there? Yours is going to be on there.
Yeah.
Yours is going to be on there. I'm sure you touched some of my shit.
Oh boy.
But yeah, exactly. Why was her DNA not found at all?
Right.
It was obviously
after
scrubbed.
years and years of use.
Right.
Even
it
a
would
week.
be there.
Yeah, even a week or a year, a day.
Drive it home.
Yeah.
That thing's full of your freaking DNA. It's in your freaking pants. Come on.
Yeah.
It's bullshit.
Well, and I think that's why people are so up in arms about this, is because there's so much evidence that's so questionable. That's like, how on earth did this happen when you put all of that together? Yeah. I understand the mindset of the people in the community trying to, like I mentioned this before, trying to be more up and everything, and these people may not be up to par. And that really does take an effect, especially in a community kind of level,
Well, even and I hate
peer pressure and whatever.
Point, yeah. That after the second case, the community does, eventually point out, that they feel that he was framed, that it was corrupt, it was evil,
Yeah, we saw interviews about that. At first, they were saying, I wouldn't put it past him to set him up and whatnot, and all of a sudden, the Brandon Dassey thing comes into play, and some of the information they started passing out about the bone fragments and whatnot, then they were like, well, I guess, maybe he did do it. It's like, all right, so before it was the law enforcement was all twisted, but now this stuff comes out in the media about certain things, and then this child, this teenager, his involvement comes in, and now all of a sudden Stephen Avery's at fault. He's the guilty party. The kid's a bystander. And some time ago you were saying, no, the police are corrupt.
Right.
But now they're not?
Right.
How do you switch that over so fast? This doesn't make any sense at all.
Well, doesn't that sound more like police corruption and people paying people off than anything else?
Right.
Manipulation.
I mean,
at
well,
its best, right?
just jumping ahead in my notes is they had Jody in jail, and she was getting interviewed, and this is the thing. She's getting interviewed about something that she got pulled over for, which I think was she was drinking.
The DUI.
DUI. And she was on probation, so yeah, they arrested her. And the funny thing is they pulled her into the interview room, and instead of interviewing her about that situation, the interview person starts talking about Steven.
Right.
And how much of a bad guy he is, and, trying to get her to agree. And when she wouldn't say a damn thing about him negatively. It was 4 days later they got Brandon in there.
Right.
Brendan in there.
I think Brendan. Yeah, that was an amazing thing. When we watched this the two other times, it just that part never sunk in right there. But it was just so shocking that her stance was not to agree with the police officer's assessment that Stephen Avery was bad, and to get this character witness information out of her per se. I'm guessing that's what they were after, and maybe get her to say anything leading to the possibility of an incriminating statement against Stephen. And then 4 days later, this teenager that has an IQ level even lower than Stephen's, as it seems, they were able just to manipulate him.
Right.
And in those interviews that we saw, he was just, it was amazing to see him try. To him, he was probably trying to feel good about it and give the right answers,
right,
and not really knowing what he was saying was going to actually harm him,
right,
or anybody for that fact.
Exactly, and that was one point too that I had, that he had no prior experience with any kind of criminal law, any law enforcement whatsoever. And when you're kind of put in a situation like that, and you're kind of just thrown in the mix, you're like, I don't know what to do. What can I say to get myself out of here?
And he just doesn't. I mean, you can tell he's clearly confused. And doesn't understand what's going on. And these two cops keep pressuring him. Yeah. They're like, come on, Brendan, tell the truth. Come on, Brendan, tell the truth. And he's like, you can see that he's thinking, he's like, I'm telling the truth. What do they want? But he doesn't have the ability to say that. So what the fuck do you want? Like I would. I'm all mouthy and shit. Right. I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Right. Yeah, I'm telling the fucking truth. What the fuck do you want from me? Right. He doesn't do that because he's a nice kid. He's a good kid. And they're literally looking for something. At one point, Tom Fassbender, he actually said, he goes, Brandon, it's extremely, extremely important that you tell us the whole truth, because we need to be able to believe you, and that'll make us believe you. And that's paraphrasing. That's not exactly what he said. But, I mean, they kept telling him, they kept hammering him with, like, tell us the truth. And the kid is telling the truth. Right. And you could see he's just like, what do you want? Right. Right.
And even talking to that, I want you to keep saying it, but something I don't know if you're going to get to this, but there was a few times they would point out to him, we already know. We just need to hear it from you. Right. Well, you're kind of telling him, tell us what we want you, hear. What we want you to say. Yeah. And every time we disagree with you, that's not what we wanted to hear. So you got to try again.
Start again.
I could get a 5-year-old to confess to killing JFK by doing that. Right. And they weren't alive, but they would do it because they're listening to what you're saying to understand, oh, I need to tell you something different. Oh, I need to tell you something different. Yeah. What'd you do to her head? We cut her hair. Well, it's going to hurt anybody. Right. And finally they have to tell him that who shot her. Right. Well, how would he even know that unless you said that? Right.
Yeah, I had that as a note too, that they basically told him, even before he had mentioned anything about shooting or whatever, they're like, well, who shot her in the head? And that's where he was like, I shot her.
Steven.
Steven shot
Right.
her. You know, just
Like,
kind
He
of
cut
like
her
just,
throat.
right. He
Well,
cut
there
her
was
throat.
no blood in a mattress anywhere.
Oh, exactly.
So it's
or
like,
anything when they tore it on the
right.
walls. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
in the professional, it was a confession expert that came on, and he said he noted that telling somebody to be honest over and over like that is a tactic to shape the statements. And then the facts are coming from the police, but then telling him he's lying to tell the truth over and over until he basically says what they want to hear. I mean, that is an actual tactic.
Yep.
But to take it to somebody that is not as, I guess, maybe cognitive, maybe not aware or understanding. I mean, that might be fair to do to somebody like you or me, or Eric or anybody that's listening to this, but it's really not fair to somebody that's technically considered under the, mentally, I don't want to say retarded. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
I think,
I don't
but the
think he
level,
is, but
where
yeah.
they actually consider somebody like mentally retarded at a certain level, and he's under that.
Yeah.
right, and this isn't our judgment coming up. When you watch this show, let's just be clear. We're not trying to judge this teenager, and I think it's safe to say he is of low intellect.
And he's even said that himself.
Well, right, and that's in a damaging way, but
Right.
just to judge his cognitive ability, honestly, he is at a very low level, and they show those scores. He's like at 68, and he's what, 16?
He was 16 at this point.
Right,
Or was he?
that
Yeah,
is-
16.
That is well below where a 16-year-old should be. So it's not like we're saying that he's mentally challenged. It's
No.
just the situation that it is. It's just hard to say that as an excuse. But in this situation, it is just what it is. So don't think that we're judging this kid. We're definitely not.
No.
And when you manipulate somebody like that, it's like manipulating a 3-year-old. It's
That's what I mean. It's like they're manipulating somebody basically with Down syndrome, and just like Down syndrome, Brendan to me comes off as
he wants to make you happy.
a simple, happy-go-lucky kid that he doesn't have anything evil in him.
You're the cop, so
Right.
why I want you to be happy with me. I don't want to get in trouble. I'll tell you what you want.
Right.
What do you need to hear?
It's exactly what a 4-year-old's going to do when you catch them with their hand in a cookie jar. I
Right.
didn't do it. What do you want me else? Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, and they
Well,
keep telling him, "We'll help you, Brendan. We'll help
right.
you."
We're going to
We'll
protect
leave
you.
them
We're the
Don't
good
think of us
guys.
like police officers.
Right.
And getting even completely further ahead of Brendan's situation, you will see that every time he goes back to say the actual truth, the story is always the same.
Different. Oh.
It never changes on when he got home, what he did, who he talked to, when he went back home.
Oh, that's right.
All of that
Okay.
stuff is exactly
Exactly
the same.
the same.
Okay.
Because that is the truth. All the other shit they got him to say was false.
And that story, all the shit that they got him to say, consistently
changing.
changes.
Yes,
Always
that's
changed.
what I was.
It changed by the person questioning him.
That's true.
Well, in jumping ahead, and I don't know what episode this is in, but I remember he's in a phone conversation with his mom. He's like, well, they said they might not be able to use my statement because it's inconsistent. And then immediately after that, he goes, what does inconsistent mean? Right. And his mother goes, I don't know.
Right.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
talk about blind leading the blind.
Right.
And she's not the brightest bulb in the tree.
She's not real
either.
good with communicating either with her
Right. I
son.
mean, she's got some wisdom because of years, but I don't think her intellectual level's even that much higher. He even came back and said, "But does that mean that
It's false?
It's false or wrong?" I can't remember the word that he used.
Because he knew that he told them a lie.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable. It's so confusing to talk about what happened to Brendan because it's frustrating.
It's
to
frustrating.
have seen what took place in the little bit that we've seen, which in my opinion is probably maybe 3% of the situation, just with him.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was so much more shit on top of that. It's just probably angry.
It's just frustrating to watch because you're sitting there going, I wish I could have been in there protecting this kid.
Right.
That's another point.
And
there was
helping
parent
nobody.
there.
Right.
Never got
No
a permission,
lawyer.
Never got
no
yeah.
lawyer, and no child services. He is a minor
Yeah.
until the judge decrees that they're going to sentence or treat him as an adult for the crimes. Until then, he has to be treated as a minor, and they never did.
Did you guys catch in the entire episode that he was actually questioned 4 times without a parent or a lawyer present?
Yeah, no permission ever.
4
Wow.
times.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
And at one of those times, his mother said, well, I asked him to come in with you, and they said no. They can't do that.
Right.
That's
No, not at
illegal.
all. Not to
And
a
so
minor.
I don't understand why this statement was even used. It was illegally obtained.
I could only imagine, and I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I could only imagine the way in which they could purposely deny a parent being involved with the questioning is if they had some hard evidence saying this person was involved. If that's the case, what is it and where is it? Until then, you're just a suspect for some reason that you want to question, and there's no reason why he shouldn't have those, again, civil rights that were taken away. So.
And here's the sad thing. The sad thing for me is that after the initial interview, he still had no idea what he had done to the cops, because they had told him, and specifically, I remember them saying, don't think of us like cops. We want to help you. And then at the end, he's sitting in there. They come in. They're like, oh, Brenda, do you need anything to eat? He's like, no. And he's like, hey, do you know how long this will take?
Right.
And they're like, just a little bit longer. He's like, do you think we'll be done by 1:30? And they're like, why? He's like, well, I have like a project that I need to turn in. He thought he was going back to school.
Right.
He had no understanding.
None whatsoever.
No.
It's just sad.
Yeah, that was a tragic point where it's just like he thought he was going home. They're like, you're basically fucked. We'll leave you in here for
so all of us, and then at the end of that, they're like, well, we are police officers.
Right.
You started off telling this poor child, don't think of us as police officers. And the end of the day, well, we are police officers.
By the way, and now you're arrested.
What the fuck?
Yep.
Yeah,
Put your hands behind your back and you're arrested.
I don't know what other notes you have there, Jen. We're at the almost to a halfway mark of the hour, so I don't know what you want to bring up, and then I'll address whatever I have in mind.
I wanted to just point out that like when Janda, Brendan's mother.
Janda?
Janda. It is Janda. Janda.
Janda?
I wrote
don't
that
even
down.
remember hearing that damn name.
Brenda Janda is her last name.
Oh, that's her last name. It was the first name. Like, I've never fucking heard that name in my life.
His name is Brendan Dassey. Her name is Brenda Janda.
Janda.
All right.
So when she's going off on Steven on the phone call, she's like, you motherfucker got my son like this, and then, basically Steven just remains calm. He's like, you know what? Go talk to him. Go figure it out. He's not trying to, you could tell in his voice, he's not trying to convince her of one way or another, or trying to talk her out of anything, or, trying to persuade her into believing anything other than go fucking talk to your son. And what does she do the next day? Goes and talks to her son, and bam. She's all of a sudden her story changes. Now she's like, I believe my son. I believe that they coerced him into, giving this statement when he didn't want to. It's just so funny to see how angry she was. And then Steven's just like calm. He's like, what the fuck do you want from me? Go talk to your son. She does it in yeah.
Well, one of the statements that I remember in that same conversation where he was asking what inconsistent meant is he also said, he's like, well, so basically, like, what if it's not the same as mine?
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, like, if I didn't do it and stuff.
Yeah.
He knew. He
knew right there.
That's the truth. So,
I think it was relating to Steven's information.
Right, that's what he was talking about. Steven, right.
Yeah, and it's still, even at that point, he still had no idea.
It's just really frustrating to watch this interview with this child and going, if this is what our police are doing, then they need to be punched in the face.
Yeah.
Because I would never allow this as somebody that, if I was in law enforcement or I was in government, I would never, ever want somebody to be interviewed like that. That was just strong-arming somebody weaker than you.
Almost police brutality.
It was pretty much like mentally and emotionally, psychologically.
Yeah.
That was abuse.
Yeah.
Yep.
He said they got to my head,
Yeah.
He was an easy mark.
The other thing that I had written down was the Teresa's brother. Let's talk about this motherfucker, this Mike guy. Mike, I can't remember her last name. I'm sorry. It's Halbach. There we go. This guy's been sketchy from the first second I saw him. There's something about his face or how he speaks. At first I was like, oh, but then him referencing that they were grieving before he even knew his sister was dead. They didn't know anything at that point, just that she hadn't come home in how many days. They hadn't found the car, nothing. And we're grieving? Right. What the fuck? Right. So this guy, when the first time Brendan came in, I think it was for like the pre-trials or something like that, and he's like, oh, finally, someone talking about the truth. Something that hasn't been done so far. How the fuck does this guy know what the truth is?
Right.
This guy seems desperate to me to convict somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
And he's sketchy in my mind, like 100% sketchy. I do not trust him.
Yeah.
I would not want to meet him in a dark alley. If I did, I'd kick his ass.
Right.
Just because he's that scary.
Mm-hmm.
We meet him, or not meet him, we witness some interview with him and an ex-boyfriend of Teresa Halbach. And the two of them just together
Yeah.
seem like they've got some involvement somehow. Like they don't want to get caught at something.
Right.
And I'm not saying that they off this chick by any means. We don't know that. But for some reason, there is something there that either could lead to something, or they have some kind of involvement. And the only thing that we see in this series that I can attest to being of involvement is her phone messages, because the ex and a friend somehow hacked her account to be able to listen to her full mailbox. And
Mike hacked her account too.
Right. I don't know. I just can't remember if he was involved with that situation or not.
I don't know if it was the same situation, but so far we have 2 people that have claimed to figure out her password.
And then roughly with the dates they were trying to prove around before or after that time frame when she went missing and these guys hacked her account, messages disappeared.
Right.
Out of a full mailbox. And they even had a phone guy come on to testify, well, the only way anybody could leave any more messages is if they got deleted.
And you're jumping ahead because this was like...
Yeah, this is really far ahead.
Further ahead in the episodes.
Just speaking to the guys, I guess, in their character. They seem like a couple of shady fuckers, and there's something going on there, and I don't... The series doesn't give you enough information to figure out what.
Just the corroboration that we do see, seems sketchy and very well orchestrated and like polished.
And with their involvement, even with the search, it just
I wouldn't go so far as say polished between the two. I would say they're that news interview that
polished
they had.
being rounded off. I don't think it's shiny. It's just
it's
shaped.
Because that media, the interview, where the newscaster was like interviewing.
No, I'm not saying that they were
the,
polished. I'm talking about their stories seem very similar.
Right.
Like it was orchestrated prior to.
Yeah.
And what the fuck is the ex-boyfriend doing on the Avery property, focusing on the Avery property, doing a search before the car was found?
Right.
You know, and that's, again, jumping ahead, but it just, it seems very sketchy
and
to me.
They're almost trying to like finish each other's sentences during the news interview of like, oh yeah, no, yeah, that's that's what he said. No, they almost are trying to like complete the story right then and there because they're kind of on the spot. Something is very holy about that. A very has too many holes in it.
Yes.
Like Swiss cheese, I should say.
And the only thing on this episode 3, that I wanted to point out is this is the first time we see Dean Strang and Jerry Buting.
I love them.
They're so awesome. I love those guys. I mean, you can say they have so much heart.
Yes.
But the first thing Dean did was point out and enforce that he's innocent of the prior crime that keeps being brought up in the media to the jury.
Right.
Like basically saying, you need to forget about this. This should not be taken into account. And I really agree with that because I think a lot of people in the community were still
stuck on that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even that one Kenneth, what's his name? Kenneth Peterson. You know, you could tell even when Strang asked him, you know, what were your what did he ask him? I wrote it down. Kenneth Peterson was the arresting officer of 1985 who pushed his beliefs upon his own staff. You know, when he was asked in court.
He's like, so he was exonerated from that, or he was proven not guilty, and he was like, I don't think so.
Right.
It's like the court proved that.
Exactly. Once the court, it's you can't overrule that.
As a police officer
on a stand,
right?
You for the county that you're, it's just ridiculous that he's like, well, to their beliefs,
right? Because he's just giving his personal opinion, and it's like, no, you're supposed to be a professional up there,
trying to sway the jury,
and he can't be professional,
exactly.
When he's on the stand.
Nope.
Another shady bastard.
Yeah.
Well, then in episode 4, we were introduced to Len Kaczynski.
Well, before we get to 4, I will mention a couple things from 3.
Well, I'm sorry.
When 3 started, they pointed out something that was happening because of his previous crimes. The Avery bill was getting signed, something that was deemed even under their name.
Right.
And the intent. Here's what's funny about this. The Avery bill. Stephen Avery, wrongfully committed, served 18 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. They started this task force thing. They got the governor, I believe, or mayor, I think it was governor, to sign this bill like days before, or it ended up being days after he was then arrested for the Halbach murder. But the Avery bill signed, intended to prevent the imprisonment of an innocent person. And of course, this was being signed and done at the same time as he was being arrested. And somehow, he's being arrested for a crime that he quite possibly didn't commit, as far as we can see the evidence.
Right.
They didn't have the evidence at that point.
But they wanted him in custody before the even body was found.
Right.
So what the fuck?
So somehow, the bill failed as it was even getting signed and put together. Never even got exercised to some proper echelon. I'm just at a loss for words for it. I don't understand how that this was supposed to prevent that from happening, and yet it goes forward. And it's just like, I don't get it.
Well, talk about motive.
Yeah,
again.
Exactly. Motive on the sheriff's department's side of things.
Yeah.
We talked about the key thing. That's more notes that I had here. November 8th, third day. Yeah, that was the note. I think it was the third day. The searches, not the fourth. I wrote that down because I thought it was the fourth too. And my question to that was, how did the key get there when the Avery family had never even been in the house?
Right.
But they've been in there 3 or 4 times before, 6 times. And so how is it those slippers had to get moved again and the key was found?
Right.
Because odds are they moved that shit before. It's just some foolishness there.
Yeah. Well, and we kind of jumped ahead and then we jumped back. But you're right. Like when Jody re-enters the house, and you can see all of the walls, the plyboard. What is it? That's all.
That paneling.
Paneling is all torn down.
Right.
Where is all that massive amount of blood that supposedly from a throat slit?
Right.
5 gunshots. Where, if that happened inside a room. But okay, I'm just even exampling the throat slit. There would be blood somewhere. I don't care where, whether it be on the mattress, whether it be on the inside of the wall. Something would have came about by you tearing down the freaking walls.
You'd have found something.
Yes.
The mattress would have been saturated.
Exactly.
You
Even
could just
if you
cut that in
burned the
half
mattress or something, or got a new one.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
They didn't.
Right.
It was on video. That was the mattress was in there. So they would have found that.
Yep.
And nothing.
Exactly. That was one thing I wanted to point out, was that there was absolutely no blood found in the house at all whatsoever.
Also in episode 3, something that I had of a point was the sheriff's department were questioned on planting evidence. The sheriff, that the arresting officer that became the sheriff. And when you saw that guy got so squirmish in his seat answering that question was...
Kenneth Peterson?
I can't remember his name, so I don't want to say that's right, but it could be.
Okay.
But he looked nervous all of a sudden, trying to say, no, we wouldn't do that. Why would we do that? And I think he was also the one that pointed out it would have been cheaper to kill him than it would have been to set him up.
Yeah.
And just to see him squirm off of that one question and then bring that up, it's just like, you're really trying to distract from what it is you're trying to answer. So
yeah, I believe that was Kenneth Peterson when they said that. Yeah.
Another note I had: nephew Brendan Dassey arrested. Sister overreacts. Example of these people's reactiveness, because all the police department, the special prosecuting attorney pointed out, we know what kind of guy Stephen Avery is. Okay, well, if you do not exclude the wrongful conviction of an attack that he was a part of, with that and the accusations of him whacking off on a car driving by at 40 miles an hour, which is ludicrous, and pulling a gun on somebody, which is a family member. What's the worst you got here?
Right.
An aggressive person, not a murderer.
No.
Not to say that wouldn't happen. However, since he's not guilty of the physical assault, the worst thing you have is accusations of him whacking off again on his cousin, sister, whoever damn car it was, and that's just ridiculous on its own.
Well, and burning a cat, to death. So we do have to include that.
The facts are, he burned a cat and he pulled a gun, an empty one, on a sibling. Now, so my comparison is, you've seen this person overreact on the phone and blame him and everything, and then turn it all around later. That's just the way these people react. So not to say that pulling an empty gun on anybody is a good idea, but that you're talking about that kind of mentality. She just goes off the deep end and then
flies off the handle.
Yeah,
it isn't a big deal anymore.
Exactly,
and he doesn't even care.
Yep.
So the family member that had the gun pulled on her, she didn't give a shit when it was happening. To be honest with you, it didn't matter.
Right.
So that again, we came around to that before. That there's something behind that that's really forcing a lot of stuff here.
Yeah. Another thing that Steve and I wanted to point out that says is that innocent people don't run. And I mean, he could have easily had the opportunity the first time he got out to just.
He could have just left town.
And why didn't he? Why and why should it?
When they were searching the property, if he felt that they were going to catch me, I'd have been the hell out of there fast.
Yeah.
Why would you stick around if they're going to focus that much? And you were worried that I was going to actually get caught? Shit, I'm out of here.
Yep.
He wasn't going anywhere.
Nope.
Let's see. I think you had more to yours that Teresa being bound to the bed and her throat cut. I'm sorry, that mattress is soaked with blood.
Right.
You're going to find her blood in that bed, even if it's a dot.
Right.
There is no way you're cleaning that up.
Well, think of the opportunity for blood is that, they supposedly slashed her neck in there.
In that bed.
Or raped her, okay,
Where's
so
the fluids?
she's choking, whatever. Where are the fluids? There.
Yeah.
And then somehow they took her off the bed that, she was supposedly strapped to.
Leaking out of that body.
Right. And then they all the way through the trailer out to the garage, and then they shot her 4 times in the garage.
No, they Dextered it up and wrapped her in plastic on the way out.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe. Okay.
Where's the plastic?
That's what I'm saying. If he was as smart as Dexter, then why would there be any DNA anywhere?
Right.
Why would there, be the key there? I mean, it doesn't make sense.
That was my point on her being bound to the bed. Even if they didn't harm her to the point of bleeding on that bed, her sweat would be in there from being terrified. Tears would be there.
Hair
her
strands.
DNA would be on that fucking bed,
Yeah.
in that fucking room, and yet the only DNA you find is on a key in his room that belongs to him.
Right.
That was supposed to be hers.
Right.
It still doesn't have her DNA on it.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
This is
my
bullshit
God.
all the way around. Was there any of her DNA in the car? Did you happen to look for that?
Right.
Just to see if she was in the damn car?
Right.
They said there was some, I'm jumping ahead, but they said there was some blood in the car. So apparently they needed it to transport her somewhere, but he burned her in his fire pit.
Her blood was in there?
Right.
I thought it was just his that they found.
No.
I didn't know that.
Hers was in the back.
Indicating
Indicating that she was transported in the vehicle after they found it.
I believe
Why would they need to move her from where to where?
Exactly.
That's the thing. If they slit her throat in the trailer, right, in the
go to a
bed,
fire pit.
they drug her to the garage, shot her 4 times. Why would they put her in the car just to put her in the fire pit, which is right outside the house?
Right.
I don't care how stupid you are. If you cut somebody's throat in a bed
you're not
and they're not
cleaning
dead, if you're going to shoot them, you're going to shoot them right there. Why would you drag them anywhere to do that? It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
The story is shit all the way around.
Yeah.
So, accused of... even if they shot her in the fire pit, where's the slugs?
They can't find
Did they
any.
dredge that damn thing? They
Nope.
found enough bone fragments. They'd have found some lead shot in there.
Let's get real here, first of all, to just say, a bonfire, I don't care how hot you get that motherfucker, it is not hot enough to burn
No way
human bones into the fragments.
No. And we talked
There was
about that.
5 fragments. Like
They
had a box.
of
But
fragments.
there's no way you can get a bonfire hot enough to do that.
Right.
You need a crematorium at, 28,000 degrees?
2,500 or 2,800.
Oh, 100, sorry.
Yeah.
I was going way higher, but
But it even...
A bonfire
I think it's
doesn't hit
45
that.
minutes
Right.
At that temperature on torches constantly.
Constantly.
And we talked about it in our last review that we did. And I do it again. And I encourage you, if you have not seen what it takes to cremate a body, go to YouTube, search it, and watch one. It is amazing what that goes through. There is no way a bonfire
No
can do that.
way.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Unless they were toking that thing for 3 days.
Yeah.
Even so, I don't even know if that would be hot enough. You'd need so much fuel,
Oh, it'd be unbelievable.
so much stuff in there.
There ain't enough garbage around that place to burn that
No.
long. So.
No.
Yeah.
But let's see, Reesa Evans, first appointed attorney. Oh, I was trying to hashtag people in the last episode, and we finally got her name. She was the very first appointed attorney for Stephen Avery. An appointed attorney, and if I understand right, she was a public defender.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
For his first case.
Yep.
Yes.
Reesa.
And she had absolutely all the best intentions in the world and felt that he was not guilty of that crime.
Yep.
Right.
and disagrees with the fact that this even took place for him.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not even involved anymore. And this woman was very passionate about the situation. You saw her in her interviews that
What
way,
was her
and
name
she
again?
seemed to be genuine that way. I don't think she was making this up or going for any showtime. But
Did you write down the name?
Is
yeah,
Reesa?
I got
Reesa?
Reesa Evans, I think it is. I'm gonna double check it to give her some credit on our next posting here. But
Yeah.
so let's see. We got Brendan, very low intelligence, easily manipulated. His first statement, he had no knowledge of Teresa. Was his actual statement. He didn't know who she was and never saw her. That was his first one from what they talked about. Knew nothing about her or that anything ever happened. Yet 4 months later in that interrogation room, all of a sudden all this shit's coming out.
Right.
And as innocent as that child is, I don't care how old you are, with that kind of innocence, that shit's gonna haunt you like no
Right.
end.
Yep.
And you were gonna tell people like you wouldn't believe because you wouldn't think
Right.
anything was bad or anything went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd have to tell somebody.
Right. Especially his mother.
Mom,
you
kids
think-
at school,
Yeah.
that shit's coming out.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do. There is no way
No.
he's going to keep that secretive.
Even if the child's a sociopath, there's no way that they can keep that as a secret. That's how people find out that children are sociopaths, because they
They don't know
can't
any
stop
better.
talking about it.
They don't know that you can't tell people that. Because they
Things
don't
come
understand it's a wrong
out.
thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Until you get caught when you're torturing animals, mom and dad point that out. Then you start hiding that shit.
Or they tell a friend and the friend just gets scared and they tell their parents and then it blows up. I
Right.
mean, that's how it is. They don't understand that it's taboo and they think everybody's on their same level.
Okay.
He didn't do that.
No. No.
See, I have Brendan was interrogated 3 days after Stephen's girlfriend, Jody. You brought that up before.
Mm-hmm.
I had 3 days, maybe it was 4. And my question is, what reason did they have to even talk to him in the first place? What evidence did they find that he had any involvement of any kind?
They never mentioned that.
Well, and why didn't they ever interview the first brother?
Right, the
Interrogate him.
sketchy guy on the
Yeah,
stand.
yeah.
Well, there's a
His
whole litany of questions that come with that.
Right.
Why didn't they question the boyfriend? Why didn't they question the
Right,
brother? Usually,
right.
people that are killed, it comes from something close.
Exactly.
Well, the attorney
Nobody-
pointed that out.
They didn't
in-
interrogate the boyfriend. They didn't interrogate
Right.
the brother.
No,
They pointed
Nobody
that out
related to her.
in the trial.
right. And this is jumping ahead again. This is
Right.
beyond season, or
But they
episode
never
3 and
went
4.
after anybody for suspects. And,
No.
and
Right.
the
They
defense attorney
just
pointed that out.
targeted Stephen Avery.
Stephen
There was
Avery.
2 possible places, and the first one we went to is the only one they went to.
I think it was a Zipper or Zippa residence
Yeah.
or whatever.
Another
There was 2 of
stop
them.
she had for
And again,
pictures.
that's way ahead, but they had 2 places to investigate, and they just targeted Stephen's
I
place.
think as soon as his name came up, they were like, "Let's get him."
Yep.
So the other note that I had toward the end, a couple notes I had toward the end of episode 3 was Brendan was a good defense witness, is something that the defense attorneys pointed out, because he could attest to Stephen Avery's whereabouts and the events that took place at the bonfire. But then after he's arrested and all of that stuff that they got him to say, that just changed him into either an uncredible witness or a prosecution witness, which then, of course, that's the way it went. Not that I don't know if he was a witness, but he could be turned into that, and now he's a guilty party.
Right.
So that just took away any possibility of him helping Stephen Avery. That was eliminated. That was probably the only real source they had of an eyewitness of where Stephen Avery was and when he was there at that bonfire. and
So
what was
why
going
would they
on.
not want to discredit it as a law
Absolutely.
profession, knowing how the law works? That's the smartest thing you do, is discredit the person that he was with.
Can you imagine like what he was going through, like mentally? I mean, just even getting yourself into that aspect of realizing that just because of the statement that he made, that he was coerced into, that he was brought to say, that now he's looking at 20 years to life in prison. That
Without parole, because he's
without
not
parole.
accepting that he did anything.
Right, because he knows that he was right.
'Cause he
He
didn't do
knows
it,
that
yeah.
he was telling the truth.
Well, this is a
And
kid that
he was
trusted.
basically yeah, exactly. He was basically told to lie, so he does, and now he's spending his life in prison. That is so fucking sad.
he trusted law enforcement, going, well, I didn't do anything wrong. I trust these people, and then they do this to him.
Yeah.
I mean, the psychological damage, I can't even imagine.
That brings up kind of one thing that I wanted to say that Strang and Buting had said. I believe it was Strang that actually had said this, is that this is an example of the criminal justice system gone wrong. The motivation, and they both Buting and Strang especially, I think, they understood it from the start.
And they had no part in Brendan's case because they weren't representing him, but it bothered them.
Exactly. You could tell that in Strang, he has heart, he has motivation, and that's probably why he is such a good lawyer, is because he actually, his conversation in the car, while the camera's looking at him, he's talking to himself.
This is jumping ahead.
It is, very, very much. But, I thought that was a strong point, was that, the words is just going through his head, and he's just expelling them because he has to get them out. He's going back and forth. What do I do? What should I do?
He said, I don't know if I'm being if I'm being fair, because I'm kind of thinking about the unfairness that's happening to Brendan, and I'm supposed to be focusing on Steven.
Right.
He's like, so I'm trying not to be unfair to Steven, but it really bothers me.
Yep.
So at this point, we're at 50 minutes, and I'm hitting my episode 4 notes.
Okay.
And although we've jumped ahead and everything, if we're going to keep this close to an hour, we're kind of at our limit on episode 3, or this is going to go another 2.
Yeah.
As it is. So, because I don't think we'll get through episode 4 in 10 minutes or less.
No.
So I don't know. You want to do another one on episode 4, maybe tomorrow night or something, or another night next week?
I think we could close up 4. I don't know. I'm almost to the end of my notes on 4.
I haven't touched my 4. I mean, I could. Have you addressed your 4 at all?
No, not yet.
Not at all.
Sorry. Okay.
But I think we could keep going. I think we could end this episode.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Well, I know that we were just talking about Strang, and I kind of wanted to touch a point real quick about.
Let's just pause right there for a second.
Okay.
So we'll back from our little break here. We're going to continue on and finish up episode 4. We're going to kind of rush this a little bit. If it seems rushed, I should say, it's because we're going to press on and just try to go from our notes so we can get episode 4 in here and try to cut this short at about hour 30 or less. So you were finishing up your 3 notes, Cheryl?
Yep.
We'll finish up your 3, and then Jen, you'll take it up on 4.
Okay.
And then we'll go mainly off your notes and then fill in ours at the end of that.
Okay. So what I was saying was that the differences between Avery's attorneys and Brendan's attorneys were huge. They were vastly different. Strang, and both Buting, have emotion, where there's something about Brendan's attorney, he's no emotion, he has no insight. He just is very kind of stone cold. I kind of feel like he's getting told what to say. He's taking the county side.
You're talking about with Len Kaczynski?
Is that his name? Yeah, Len Kaczynski.
You mean Brendan's first attorney?
Yes.
Oh, that fucker was shady.
Just
there's something up with that clown.
Right, just pure no heart, no. He runs on fucking money.
He's a little worm.
He's supposed to be an appointed defense attorney, and it looks like he's getting paid from the judge.
Exactly. Yep.
And guy's a eunuch. I swear to God.
Probably.
Well, he definitely doesn't have any fucking balls.
No.
Right.
And it'd be a disgrace to say he's got a vagina, really.
Right. Well, and then
a disgrace of the vagina.
And then the next introduction is we have Ken Kratz, who looks almost kind of resembles Hitler. Just saying, I don't know,
with the voice, like it sounds like he's trying to mimic Michael Jackson, but just can't do it.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Well, the creepy thing about it is like when he was trying to give his sway on the jury, the jury, or no,
his
I think
opening
it was
statement.
Even
with the media. Yep.
He's just trying to just push it out. Stephen's sweaty body answers, and his answers the door, and his nephew sees his sweating,
and he's drenched in sweat.
Right, he's almost
and he's half naked,
getting off.
Right.
Are you saying that on the first break he went and rubbed one out?
Yeah, probably.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think he did it before. He was probably doing it during.
Right.
And probably did it after.
Peeing down
just
his leg a little bit.
creepily trying to this is what I want you to believe this. And now this motherfucker.
What is that guy's name?
Ken
Kratz.
Krantz? I'm sorry, fucker. I don't like you. But
right. And I was trying to write a book.
You're
it's
creepy.
Like he's trying to write a book because he's
that's
good with his
ahead of
verbs.
shit there,
Creep, just stop. Stop where you're at.
That dude, seriously, it infuriates me to see him talk and speak. Even before he said anything, it just his presence.
Vibrations.
It's like,
just
it's,
kind of
the feeling
eerie.
is literally ick.
Yeah.
He's the reason why you look at a prosecuting attorney and dislike them for what they're doing. Because he's doing it for the wrong reasons.
Yep.
He is not putting a criminal behind bars. He's attempting to just place blame for something to someone for some other damn reason other than justice.
Exactly.
And he doesn't belong there.
I agree. 100%. He's not doing it for
It's for the
reasons.
stats.
Yeah.
He's a showboater.
Yeah.
It's for the stats.
Well, right.
He wants to make good with all of his buddies and rub shoulders and everything. He's not in it for the people.
I think some of that after stuff you found, Jen, was that maybe you didn't find this or it came up later, something like that. That dude was sending off dick pics to not witnesses,
clients.
victims and clients and shit. It's like, how in the hell do you have a fucking job in the district attorney's office?
Right.
What the hell? What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to actually be setting some kind of example for the law. And look what you're doing.
He tries to blame it on like mixing medications.
Oh, for
You
fuck's
can see it just
Fucking
in
idiot.
how he talks. Even today, in interviews that he does today, he's the same goddamn puffed up peacock of a person that doesn't deserve to be.
No.
He's got an inferiority complex mixed with narcissism.
Yeah.
He's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Whatever
He's
your meds
absolutely
are,
ridiculous.
buddy, take a couple bottles.
Just
get it over with.
Actually,
That's right.
I'll be like Doug on Scrubs, and I'll just prescribe him 15,000 milligrams of codeine,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that'll be the dose that he needs in one dose. Good night, motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Is that your 3?
Yeah, I'm caught up on my notes. I
Okay.
have 3 notes that I wanted to point out, but those are just random.
Okay.
So my notes was
So we're on episode 4 now, right?
yes.
So we're
Yep.
moving to episode 4.
Well, we're kind of been in between.
Yeah, we've
but
been going back and forth, but now we're legitimately
only on
actually
episode 4.
going on episode
right.
4.
Well, damn, I jumped way ahead.
So
Sorry.
that's all right. So we got introduced to Len, the creepy little worm, who
That
can't,
was Brendan's attorney.
Brendan's attorney,
That's
yep.
right. Okay, that's good. I'm trying to.
can't wear appropriate pants. He obviously doesn't know his length and his pants length. You know?
I'm just trying to match my notes, so if you mention
Right.
shit, I can check it out.
So the news asked him if being questioned alone as a minor was normal, and he just kind of gave a suppressive answer.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it can happen. Some blah,
blasé
blah, blah.
answer.
He didn't even really answer the question. And if you notice the consistency of answers between Len and Kratz, they're the same. If you
good
notice,
observation.
yeah, if you notice the consistency of the answers between Buting and Strang,
Yeah.
they're not.
Right.
And it's not that they're saying the exact same thing. Either party is not saying the exact same thing. It's the same kind of like tactic.
Consistency
It's
of
almost like they're
words
both
and-
both are playing on the same side of the ball.
Yes.
Even though they're labeled to be on opposite sides.
Yep. Yep. And if you're like me and you see patterns, it just kind of, all right. So you two don't want to answer the questions, and you two are fully able to answer the questions in your own opinion, which can be different, but you answer them with the same conviction.
Yeah.
These two morons, Kratz and Kaczynski, were just like, oh, just stuff everything under the rug. Everything's awesome. Do you see my smile?
Right.
Where's my paycheck?
Right.
Exactly. Cha-ching.
And here's the other thing is the media's involvement, which is my other note. The media's involvement is like right when Len started being Brendan's representative, is it came out where somebody asked Steven on the phone, they're like, well, is Brendan smart?
Oh, yeah.
And Steven was very uncomfortable answering the question. He was like, oh, not really.
Right.
And the news changed it saying that they said Stephen Avery says his nephew isn't that smart. And it's like that's not what he said. And then Len's theory on this was ridiculous. He's sitting in his office saying, I think it was a message to Brendan. I think it was a message, like a threat.
Rude. Yeah.
Really?
A threat. Oh my god, yeah, he was uncomfortable answering the question as it was.
Right. And they're both on the same side of that fence of getting prosecuted for something.
Right.
What message is he sending?
Right.
Well, it just made me think, is Len even in reality, or is he living in a CSI movie?
He's living.
I mean...
Ish, yeah.
And here's the other thing I noticed is that Len was walking into court at one point with Fassbender.
Yeah, they seem very buddy-buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Which, it doesn't matter, attorneys are attorneys. They have the same job. They just stand on two different sides of the line, and that's just in the legal sense. So I don't take anything much from that, but just in his conduct, it just looks like he shouldn't be talking to anybody else.
And
he should be upset and bothered by this district attorney, prosecutor, wanting to place blame on his client, who he's supposed to be defending, because it's wrong, and he should have evidence showing that it's wrong. But he doesn't care. He just just over there, asking what kind of ingredients he wants on a steak or some shit. I have no idea. But
well, in another clip, they had him and Ken Kratz, Len Kaczynski, and Ken Kratz goofing around in the hallway before court started.
Jesus.
They're all laughing and chummy, and
you could tell which side Len Krasinski was on. Yeah.
It's not even a side. It just
he didn't
care.
Yeah.
He was there to make buddies so he could move up in the world. It had nothing to do with the client.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
And then he was the one that hired Michael O'Kelly, who was the investigator. He was even worse than the cops. He said he couldn't help Brendan if he didn't say he was sorry and that he felt guilty.
That was horrible.
He's like asking you, do you feel sorry? And you can see Brendan doesn't understand because he's like, for what?
Right.
For what? There's nothing to be sorry for.
That was devastating. Where
Right.
he's like, I can't help you.
He's like, you need to tell me the real truth.
Box
right.
Is saying that you are guilty, and then he
said you need to tell me the real truth,
Right.
and had him Brendan write it down.
Right.
And Brendan wrote the actual truth down that we keep hearing.
Yep.
Exactly. And you saw a copy of that
Yes.
before he coerced him into writing a confession to something that didn't happen.
He's
and
like,
draw pictures.
does this mention anything about Teresa?
Right.
And he's like, no. He goes, then this isn't the truth.
Exactly. He's like,
Right.
what the fuck?
I have a note exactly on that Len had his own investigator speak with Brendan after denial of throwing out the BS confession. So it was right after being in court where they were attempting to get his original confession thrown out because of the tactics used to get it. And they denied that. So then he calls for his investigator to go visit Brendan in jail, and that's when he got him to do that again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was like so set up to have that. That's what it looked like to me. It was just set up to take place.
Here's the other thing that we're talking about, the psychological and emotional damage on a child, is he thinks this person is like gonna
Trying to
defend
help
me.
him.
So he starts with the real truth, and then he gets treated the same way that he was with the cops. Can you imagine?
That's how the cops treat everybody, though.
But I'm saying this is the investigator for the defense, or for the defense.
There may be cops out there that don't do this. I'll say that so we don't get so many hate messages. But that is typical. Is that the standard is you're innocent until proven guilty is what they say.
But you don't expect that from your defense attorney,
right? Unless your defense attorney is getting paid by the county.
Right.
So
I guess that's kind of the point.
That was my one point I wanted to point out is that the standard is you're innocent until proven guilty, but really, as a convicted felon or anything, being convicted, you are treated like you are guilty until proven innocent. And that's one thing I think that Stephen might have even pointed out. I don't know. But
Stephen's attorneys kept pointing that out to people that
you're
he's
guilty.
an innocent man right now until he's proven to be guilty.
And that is typically around the board how it is.
But what they're doing is treating him as a guilty person.
Yeah.
Automatically before he even gets a trial.
Yeah, and that's just how it is. That's the standard. They say it's one way, but it really is the other.
And this is the other thing, is before Brendan even left the room, like they were getting him chained up to move him, is the Michael O'Malley calls Len Kaczynski on the phone, and Len obviously asked how it went. He literally said, "Oh, it went well, very good. Oh, quite well." Yeah. Why, as a defense attorney and an investigator for the defense, would you think it would be good to get that kind of confession out of your client?
You're right.
That you're trying to defend.
Well, if you count successfully coercing him to confess,
right?
Well, that would be successful.
Yeah. See?
But if you're defending him, I'm not quite sure. I think your point's accurate there. I'm not sure that is successful, particularly when you're getting him to lie about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Jenny, that's an amazing point. I didn't even realize that until you just said that.
Mm-hmm.
No. Yeah.
Yep.
It's unbelievable, really.
So then the other part is, I think we talked about it before, is moving on, is they found the RAV4 by that psycho crazy lady, the Christian lady that we'll meet later. The Bible thumping retard. Uh-huh. Anyway, oh God, I use the word retard. I'm sorry public. People. I'm from the 80s. I use it just like in general, just like when I say gay, and I don't actually mean gay, like as in
fag,
homosexual, right?
Come on.
Anyway,
it's all right.
So by this
before we get into her,
jackass,
if I can just,
we're not getting into her. I'm actually just mentioning something else.
Before you get up to, or are you still talking about that confession part?
Well, I was still talking, but that's all right.
No, that's fine. I just don't want to miss something that I have.
Go
about
ahead.
The situation
Go ahead.
for that. after that confession stuff that the investigator did, the Len guy got the detectives. He said that Brendan was willing to speak to them to the next morning, Saturday morning.
He wanted to talk to them.
Right.
Which he did
so
not.
that he could again tell them that fictitious truth, which of course then he wasn't doing because he didn't know that's what he was supposed to be doing. And then they were accusing him of lying and then threatening bringing his mom into the situation he was lying. And so they coerced him to then, again, confess to doing something he never did do, and then to call his mom to tell her himself about those facts, because they knew that phone call was recorded and it would come across as if he was confessing something to his own mother that he was trying to deny elsewhere. And in that conversation, you could tell between him and his mom his inability to think clearly on what it was he was supposed to be telling her, why he was supposed to be telling her.
Yeah.
He was just worried that she learned from somebody else before he could say anything. And once he learned that she didn't hear anything, then it was just like, well, I'm supposed to tell you stuff. I'm not saying the words exactly. He didn't know what he was supposed to tell her, because he wasn't ever coached what to say.
Right.
But he knew he was going to say that he did some stuff they didn't do, and then in the end, she was all upset and pissed, and then he was like, well, I didn't really do it.
Flew off the handle again.
Right, but then in the end, it was like, well, I didn't really do it. Then she was pissed that now you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail because you just confessed to that again.
Right. He's so confused. It almost makes me want to cry.
Yeah, it's a sad situation that they got him to literally pound the own nails in his own coffin.
Yeah.
Not even knowing what he was putting together.
Well, did you guys notice that they got really frustrated in that interview too, because his it was inconsistent, and they were like, "So you're in the bedroom and you cut the hair off?"
Oh yes, then the story was different.
Right, and he was like, "Yeah," and they're like, "No, that doesn't make any sense." I mean, you could tell they were pissed because it wasn't collaborating.
Yeah. Right.
They're like, "You had to have gotten the knife from the garage."
Wow.
They're telling him where he's getting the shit.
Yeah, all of that
and
stuff
when
was
the
just set up.
timeline.
Yeah,
They're
you're
setting
right.
it up.
You're right.
Unbelievable
They were
amount of bullshit.
Yeah, they were putting the facts in front of him before he even knew what the story was and what the facts were, like that.
I don't think he knows today what the story is.
I don't think so.
No, because he wasn't there. He wasn't the one who did it. Neither did Stephen Avery. This was completely done by somebody else. That's all I'm going to say. It was not done by them.
But that was just a conversation note that I had on the situation. I didn't want you to jump off past that. I think you were going beyond that. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. Well, I was just going at the one thing that they mentioned is that he had the car crusher on the property.
Yes.
And he was functioning the day before.
Yep.
So
he was functioning at the day before.
Right, he was working at the day before, so he knows how to use it. It was on the property, it was accessible, and it worked.
That was one of my notes too.
Why is the RAV4 covered up suspiciously when no other cars are?
Right, with wood pallets and trees and branches.
And there's no blood anywhere, no fingerprints, no fingernails, no hair. There's an old cut that they got on his left hand, right? But the blood that looks like it was applied by a Q-tip, honestly. Right. Like, just in my eye, it looked applied like a Q-tip. The blood doesn't splatter that way.
Right. On the
right side with the ignition.
Yeah. Yeah.
If he was that smart and efficient of a killer to get rid of all the blood that could have happened inside the house and all the DNA that could have happened inside of the house, why would you leave the car and the property and your own blood after removing every speck of hers?
Yes. And especially with the crusher, that no other serial killer really has that accessibility to a car crusher.
Right.
So why would he have not used it if he's this mastermind that they're trying to say he was?
Right.
Well, let's not forget that somehow he figured out a way to incinerate a corpse in a bonfire.
Right.
But yet didn't quite grasp the car crusher would have been helpful.
Right.
That you were operating the day before. Something tells me if he was really the guilty party, he would have thought, hey, maybe I want to put that car in this crusher.
Maybe just put the body and the car in the crusher.
There's a good fucking plan.
Oh,
it's for Christ's sakes. And if they even came back with, let's just speculate for a second and go, well, maybe he did crush the body in the crusher. I think you'd find some shit in that crusher from her body.
Right. Why didn't they investigate?
Because that's going to mutilate the shit out of that, and he's not going to find every speck to throw in the fire either. No. Come on.
Good Lord.
And that's just us speculating. That was not in the show. I was just spitballing that out just to point out the accessibility of the tools he had that he just didn't utilize. However, seemed to have schemed some other shit that was just magnificently genius.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yep. And this was actually the episode that we saw Jody goes back to drinking, his girlfriend.
Okay.
Right? 9 days later, she was caught, and they put a no contact order with Steven. How can they do that?
They can do that.
Why would they do that? He's in jail.
Well, I remember when I was in jail, when I was out,
She's a criminal.
John Day was incarcerated. I was not allowed to go see him. You said his last name.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. An ex of mine was incarcerated, and I was not allowed to see him by my probation officer because we both had drug convictions. Even though they weren't similar, they weren't related, they were just drug convictions.
Okay.
I was not allowed to see him.
All right. That was my question. I don't understand how they could do that. It has nothing to do with her drinking and driving. I mean, he's in prison, so
That's true.
I just thought that was kind of odd. And she said she's not leaving. She's not going anywhere. And then, later on, they took her to jail months afterwards, right? She had left. She had gotten a job and, had a no contact. She was trying to get it overturned, but she wasn't violating it. And then all of a sudden they arrest her again because she happened to be in the same hallway in the courtroom that Stephen was in because they were passing each other in the hallway because he was going to one court and she was going to another.
Involved in two separate legal situations.
Yeah, two legal. She smiled. They smiled at each other. And they slap a fucking violation on them.
I thought the first time was because they were actually passing each other on the fucking street in two different cars.
No, it was the courtroom. They were both in court on the same day,
I swear
being escorted.
Something came up that she passed them in a car on the road, and that's how she got arrested too. So maybe it happened that way as well later on, because she got arrested 3 or 4 fucking times.
Well, in between between June and August after that fact, she got arrested several times. Yeah, I think it was 4 different times.
I swear that car thing came up once in that, because I remember hearing it and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah.
How is it you can control that when he's in a cop car driving somewhere? Yeah. How do you know he's in there?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the same situation as in the courtroom.
It's just stupid.
Yeah.
I don't know how they can arrest somebody for that.
And it's almost
that's harassment.
It is harassment.
When you're getting led to court, you're getting led to court by a corrections officer.
Right.
So you follow their lead. Mm-hmm. When you're coming into court, it's random. Mm-hmm. So if you pass each other, it is just so typical. I just have to kind of chuckle at that because that is so typical of a probation officer or ruling to violate you for something stupid like that.
I just think that's ridiculous. Yeah. They couldn't help it.
The moon was full that day.
Right.
It's your fault.
You're getting violated. Yeah.
Perfect.
So
fucking ridiculous.
Then we saw that Len called it dumb that his mom encouraged Brendan to write a letter to the judge, because you remember they tried to get him changed because he was trying to convince Brendan to do a plea bargain, and his mom was like, "You can't do that."
Yep.
And she's like, blah blah blah, why would you do that? He's like, "I don't know, Mom, because I'm dumb. I'm really dumb. I can't help it, and she's like, "No, you're not." She's like, "You're not doing a plea bargain, whatever." So Brendan wrote a letter to the judge. After the judge denied change of attorney, they kind of just stepped over Len, and the judge, just because of the letter, dismissed him. So Len was dismissed. And they asked him if he was sorry or something. He was like, "Well, I'm sorry because of all this happened." Mm-hmm. What the fuck?
Who said that?
Len said that. Who would ever want somebody as an attorney? This guy is so inefficient. Right. He's a pawn.
Yeah,
he did something. Oh. He did something. Oh, I remember the reason why he dismissed him. I know what you're talking about now. The reason why the judge decided to dismiss him was because he found out that he had his own investigator go there and coerce him in some kind of stuff, or talk to him or some shit, and then allow the detectives to come and talk to them again without permission or something to that effect. I can't remember the reasoning behind it, but something was found out that the judge said that wasn't a good thing, and that's why he dismissed him. So that's what he was saying. Yeah, I'd do it again. Well, obviously not. I wouldn't do that again because of this situation. Mm-hmm. Because he got caught doing something that now wasn't supposed to be doing.
Right.
Whether, as far as we know, the judge could have been having him doing that anyway. Mm-hmm. But, again, that's our speculation, not in the show.
Right. Yep.
My last disjointed note was about Peterson, right? He's the top of the sheriff's officer, the original officer that arrested him. He and Lenk kept coming up. Lenk was a direct report of him. Lenk was the one that found the key. And they noticed when they went to go do the DNA collection for the blood sample back in, I think it was 85, they looked at it and Lenk was the one that took it. or put it into,
Evidence.
Yep. And they noticed that the box was tampered with Scotch tape over the red seal tape that they typically use.
Oh, yeah.
So not only was the box on the outside tampered with, and then when they took the styrofoam thing out, they also noticed the tape around there was cut into.
Yeah.
Why would that be cut into if the lab had already tested it?
And they don't
They
tamper
seal it up
with the evidence.
and they said, we don't do that. It was cut into totally. And honestly, the tube looks sketchy to me. I know that there's going to be a hole in the vacutainer top, right? When they're doing those tests.
Mm-hmm.
It's a purple top. Yep. And so it's going to have that anticoagulation.
Some other shit in there too. And they didn't spin that down. I don't think it ever gets spun down.
Right. So it was completely liquid, and they were kind of mentioning that. But it does have the anticoagulation. But would that still be active after how many years?
18, 20,
years? I don't know. I don't ever remember the date of that blood collection. So I don't know if it was from that case or from the previous one.
85.
If it was from 85, unrefrigerated, I have no idea if that shit would be any good at this point.
I can't even imagine that would be
as
liquid.
Good as it could be. Not to say that the stuff was healthy, but it looked like blood.
Yeah.
It didn't look separated or anything.
Right.
Right. And then on the top, there's kind of like a little bloody spot on the hole. And Eric says that he's actually seen that. In all the blood draws that I've seen, all the tubes that I've handled, because we both work in medical, I've never seen blood on the top of a vacutainer.
The only times I can recall seeing it consistently happening is when you pull it on a patient that's actually got pretty high blood pressure. The vacutainer sucks the blood in. But then when it's full, if their blood pressure is high enough, it'll put a little pressure on the tube. So that when you pull the needle out, or pull it out of the vacutainer device itself, it actually still has a little pressure behind it so that some blood will stay there. But if you're a healthy human being, and it's coming right out of your vein that way, and it's not a huge vein, you're not gonna. I can't say you'd get that.
The other thing I noticed is that the needle hole looked bigger than what a needle hole usually looks like.
Yeah, those vacutainer needles, they're pretty tiny.
Well, you're talking what, a 24, 22?
Probably right around there.
And honestly,
sure,
that hole looked like a 14. I mean, it was huge. The hole was huge.
I don't know if I go that far. It's probably
maybe not a 14.
Maybe 16, 17.
16, 17, right.
It didn't look like a pin barrel when that damn thing.
But it was pretty big when you looked at the top.
Was.
You know how big those purple tubes are. I mean, we've all handled them.
Are kind of small compared to the bigger ones.
Compared to the bigger, like the red tops.
But,
yeah.
You know, it doesn't pull that much blood out. And even if this guy had high blood pressure, it wouldn't have been high enough, in my opinion. He doesn't look like he's that stressed in life, to be honest with you.
Well,
so,
circumstances, but no.
Right, even in the circumstances, I don't see him having a high blood pressure issue, to that kind of a high blood pressure issue. Because you're also talking the things that I've seen. You're talking about a pretty big hose that a vacutainer is plugged into for dialysis.
And you guys dealt with those super big needles. And,
right,
I mean,
so the pressure would have came through a needle much easier than just a vacutainer stuck in a vein. In that situation, from what I've experienced, not happening.
Right, and that's the thing is I'm checking from the other end where we use much smaller needles.
Yep.
I've never seen a sample look like that before. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying when I say it looks funny. It doesn't look good. You know what I mean? It looks tampered with, like, completely.
Well, it is tampered with because the evidence tape has been cut without justifiable cause.
Exactly.
If you're going to open that evidence container up, there's record of it and why.
Okay.
They're not just going to cut it open and put fucking Scotch tape on it.
Right.
That's not a professional handling at all. A lab's not going to do that. They're going to rewrap that with evidence tape, dated, timed, signed, initialed, so people know it wasn't a shady operation.
Yeah. And they called the lab, and the lab says, "No, we don't reopen it.
They didn't touch that.
We did not do that."
Yeah.
And honestly, the hole on the top of the vacutainer looks ridiculously large to me.
Yeah.
That red spot on the top, if it was there for 18 years, that thing would have been there. It had dried up and fell off. Nothing sticks to that fucking rubber top. But it was still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. There's something shady there.
Yeah, I agree. One topic that I want to throw out there that I think that we all kind of agreed on, which is I don't know how to transition from what we were just talking about to this, but was that Avery accepted a smaller amount, during his the case.
The lawsuit.
The lawsuit. Even though, with the county not taking responsibility, which is weird because when you do take a plea bargain, like they took to give him a smaller amount, where is the responsibility? When you take a plea bargain, you're basically admitting that you're guilty. Why does this not apply to the Manitowoc County? Giving them the smaller.
If they're like, well, we're going to negotiate.
Agreeing
does
to
that not
paying him a smaller amount, but we're not going to take responsibility. But if it was any kind of civilian case, otherwise, you taking a plea bargain is basically you admitting guilt.
Right.
Why does this not count when it comes to them?
Mm-hmm.
Or this case?
That's good questioning.
No.
I don't get it myself. I don't agree with that.
No.
Because like you're pointing out, if I agree to pay somebody something in contest,
you're admitting something.
I'm admitting something.
Yep.
Not just to settle it.
Nope.
I mean, companies do that all the time to settle something with that agreement, and I just don't understand how that comes into play. I'm sorry. If you're not guilty, why are you agreeing to pay anything?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, let's just be honest. Nowadays, most often it's cheaper to go that route.
Right.
But when you're talking $36 million or $400,000,
you should take some kind of responsibility. Of guilt.
You were going to lose
Right.
$36 million. Let's just be clear.
Exactly.
He just needed money, and that's why he took that.
Right.
Well, it's not even about responsibility. It's about accountability. You're accountable, which is why you're offering this person
smaller
money.
You're accepting
in the first place.
Right.
kind of guilt.
That's why you're offering them this, agreement, is because you're accountable.
Yeah.
If you weren't accountable, you wouldn't do that.
At
So
all.
how the hell can they give them the money and then say, well, no, we're not accepting any responsibility for the accountability? Right. That's bullshit.
That's fucking bullshit.
It's bullshit. They should not be allowed to do that.
No,
but it's the
not
only
at
reason
all.
they're allowed to is because they thought they had that much power.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah.
No, back on the blood tube, the only thing that I had, and this is the last note I had, because by the time we were getting in episode 4, I had so much thought on 3, I was running low. My last note was, what happened to the blood tube? First of all, and we talked a little bit about that, but when was it originally drawn? Did they ever say? Was it from 18 years, the first case?
85.
Because in 85?
Yeah.
To me, that just doesn't sound right. Because when I worked in the clinic, if we left a tube on a counter overnight, that shit was rotten.
Even if it was a purple tube.
Even if it was purple. It didn't matter what it was. It was no good anymore. Now, that's not to say you couldn't get some viable DNA out of it, nonetheless, that it would still look like blood. But, why was it ever drawn? They didn't even talk about that either. So I guess it was just more of a curiosity question.
I think that they actually do draw blood.
Do they do that all the
time? When you come to jail. Yep. They draw blood and they test you for, diseases
so here,
and stuff
this
like
is
that.
But they said that this sample was from 85.
And if that's
original,
the case,
right.
and they draw it every time you're arrested for whatever the situation is, why didn't they have fresh shit?
Why didn't they
have fresh stuff from that arrest?
Yeah.
Where was that stuff? So even if this
okay.
wasn't tampered with, where's that other tube of stuff then?
Mm-hmm. I don't think they had him in custody at the time.
No, because this is when the lawyers.
What?
This is when the lawyers.
They went to get that blood sample,
You're right.
but it's because they already had proof that there was blood on the vehicle. They found the vehicle. That was all after that fact.
Yeah.
So he was already arrested.
Yeah.
So where that did they draw anymore?
Right.
Did they bother? I mean, where's the exercising protocols here? And obviously we don't know about that. This is just in the show, but those are questions that I have.
Yeah.
And maybe it all took place appropriately. I don't know. But you're saying you did hear that particular sample was from 85, and that's fine. I just didn't remember. That's why I wrote it down.
Yeah. But I do believe every time that you are arrested, they do take samples.
Did they take samples from you?
Yeah.
Blood?
Yeah.
If I get arrested, they can't have none of mine. I refuse.
Refuse.
If I get injured, then you can take some drippings.
Right.
But you are not sticking a needle in me.
Well, I got arrested, but they didn't take blood from me.
Okay. Well, if you're maybe in jail for like an extended period of time.
Okay.
I would imagine for health reasons they would do that, but
absolutely.
just getting arrested on something, I don't know why they would do that.
Yeah. I think once you're being incarcerated or something like that.
Oh, okay.
They got to do this. They got to test you for this. They got, tuberculosis. They give you a little shot, and then 5 days later they come check the bump. Or,
the TB shit. Yeah. That's all the notes I had for 4.
I as well.
Did you have more?
No, that was it.
True.
It just The reason we keep going over this and the reason we keep talking about the subject is because, like we're doing now, I've been through the entire series 3 times now. Yeah. It's my 4th time going through. Mm-hmm. And even now I'm finding stuff that it's just so...
Questionable behaviors.
It's unbelievable that this stuff either wasn't or couldn't be shared in court, because if the judge and the jury was able to see what we see, it's so sketchy.
Yeah.
They saw more than what we were able to see.
But they didn't see the same kind of stuff that we did. They didn't see Brendan Dassey's interview tapes. They didn't see all of the stuff that we're seeing. Mm-hmm. They only saw certain stuff that was allowed to be in the trial, you know?
And that, I could even question that, because if I was his defense attorney and they wouldn't throw out his confessions at all right, put the tapes in the machine.
Right.
We're going to see how this was actually
and they may
produced.
may not have known it at that time. You know, you have to think
That's
this documentary has been done way after the fact, which is why it's shining such a highlight to the judicial system and the inaccuracies and kind of missteps that they can make. Mm-hmm. Because, yeah, could this have all been circumstantial because they didn't know about it? Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. There's 2 different cases going on in a high-profile case, media coverage everywhere. Everyone's confused. Everyone's just grasping. Oh my God, I need information there. Oh God, we got to go this direction. It's literally must have been frantic.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
And so now that we see it, hindsight, because that's 2020, mm-hmm. You're going, how the fuck was this allowed?
How was
this
missed? How was that missed?
Right.
Yeah,
and how is, with this information, a mistrial or a retrial not granted? Because it 100% should be.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I don't even think we brought this up. Maybe it was on our last review, but the defense attorney, when they brought in some evidence for something, I cannot remember what it was or the circumstances, and maybe this will jog your memory that you'll remember it. But after this information came across, he was actually pushing for a mistrial at the point, pointing out, if this isn't the basis of a mistrial, I don't know what is. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember what the data is that came up about that. It was unbelievable. It was just like right in our faces, like, this isn't right. Mm-hmm. And I think it was the mention of something about his previous case to the jurors, and then something about being guilty on some other accounts or some shit like that. When you watch the series, you'll see it. It's in the first 3 episodes. I know that for sure. I don't think it went into the 4th one. But the defense attorney was actually making a point for position of mistrial. Mm-hmm. And the judge disagreed with it. Yeah. Because he didn't feel that was brought up in that light to some degree. It was just, for some reason, it's really striking me in the head right now, and it pisses me off. I can't really think of the exact data, because it was amazing at this point of the data we've talked about, mm-hmm. on how obvious it was that, how the fuck could you do that? Because then now this is all pushed one way, mm-hmm. incidentally, and these jurors are supposed to be unbiased.
Right.
Well, they've already got slapped in the face with something that isn't reality, in a way of making it reality.
Right.
How are they going to judge anything different?
Right. Well, like the Kenneth Peterson, his opinion. Mm-hmm. About the 1985 case. Mm-hmm. You know, why was that even brought up? I mean, I know, okay, even the defense attorney did bring that up, but Kenneth Peterson's opinion about it was obviously trying to sway the jury in one way or the other when a decision had already been made.
And I honestly think that our one commenter on our blog so far that said, how about New Zealand?
Right.
Absolutely correct,
Absolutely.
Dude. Absolutely correct. They should have taken the case to New Zealand.
Yep.
Even though some of the people probably saw a little bit about it, they probably would have been a little bit more understanding.
Sure. We're not going to mention your name here just to be respectful.
But good point.
Thank you for commenting.
Yes.
That's
absolutely.
That was a great comment that you left, and it was done in a very good way. And just people take example from that. If you're going to leave other comments, we appreciate it. We really do.
Yes.
But if we don't have anything else to say, we do have some funny stuff to talk about, because of course we try to keep this stuff fun and light.
Because it's usually pretty heavy.
Dark and heavy.
Right. So what we're going to do, I got literally 5 pages, so I'm going to hand a page out, and we're all going to read a page of this shit.
Like speed read?
Well,
like Microman?
You can run through it, because, you know, I didn't. When I heard this morning on our local radio show, morning show is KQRS, it was actually kind of funny. It's funny excuses for being late
Okay.
for work. So what are you saying?
5 minutes.
5 minutes? Speak.
5 each.
5 each? Okay.
Okay.
So what we're going to do is what I did is I did a
Trying to
quick
do
Google
hand
search.
signals. It doesn't work. So
Oh,
sorry for the audience.
Yeah. That's why I just told you to speak. I don't want to guess. So this is what it is. Funny excuses for being late for work. So I'll read the little blurb here at the top. I was surprised to find out that 20% of workers are late to work at least once a week. You know what boggles me just about that statement right there? I travel for work a lot.
Yeah.
I've never fucking been late. I don't get it. So anyway, apart from public transportation, other excuses are lack of sleep, which counts for 24% of workers, followed by 10% who claim that childcare and having to get children ready for school slows them down. Excuse me, wine burp. If you had grown up with me, you would never need an excuse for being late. My mom always told us that it's better to be an hour early than 1 minute late. Now, personally, I can't agree with or disagree with that. No, my mom didn't do that. That was a whole different ballgame. But I freaking hate being late.
I disagree.
I hate being late.
Miss Captain Procrastinator
I will
here.
arrive at 7:59, and I want to be logged in at 8 o'clock exactly.
If I have to arrive at 7:59, my drive is 14.3 minutes long. It takes me 6.7 minutes to get ready. That means I get up at 7:32 and 30 seconds.
Exactly.
It's like fucking
I have to
Christ.
rush at 7:30.
So maybe that's why we always get the choice seats at every event. Now to think of it, we always get to set up the seats for the event. Okay, so that's this person make this comment. I love my mom. She taught me some great principles in living life. I'm learning some of them on my watch now that I'm in my mid-50s. Okay, so I have a few here. As Jen said, we'll pick off 5. If you find a few more than 5, it's not a big deal. We've got some time here. We're okay. And I've got 3 pages to go through.
Oh boy.
Well, I have 3. You each have 1. Because when I printed this, and by the way, this is by a website called youcanbefunny.com. So youcanbefunny.com gets the credit for this. I didn't compile this stuff.
We can always do these more to the next segment, so I'm
Yeah,
only going to mark a few here.
That's fine. Whatever you read, mark it off. So maybe we'll read this one again on the next funny one too, because from what the ones that on our morning show locally here that they read just the top 5 or 10, and I don't know where they got theirs, but some of that shit was so damn stupid and at the same time a little bit funny.
Okay.
But yeah, so I haven't looked at these at all yet. So Jen, I'll let you go first.
Okay, I marked off 7. All right, so the first one is, hey, why are you late? My car ran out of gas on the way to work, and I had to push it to the gas station. I think I got a stomach hernia, and I have to go see a doctor.
Nice.
Oh, that's elaborate.
Second one is, I'm late because my dad was punishing my younger brother. He was beating him with my shoes.
Oh boy.
Yeah. That would be kind of hard. Can't walk out of the door without your shoes. The third one is actually kind of one of my favorites, and I would love to do this just to be a smart ass, is the line was too long at Starbucks. Oh my God.
Guys, you just love Starbucks coffee, right?
I'm realizing that I'm planning these in my head for excuses. Of why
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Just whenever you get late to work, just pull this fucking list out and go,
I'm keeping this.
This one looks good for
Exactly.
today. Here.
This one would not only be good to tell your boss, but also your psychiatrist, all right? In case you were ever going for, I can't work anymore because I'm psycho.
Okay.
This one says, I was up all night arguing with God.
Yeah, I would never have that conversation with a boss, but if I did, they'd know that was bullshit.
Then you can follow it up with I wasn't thinking. I accidentally went to my old job.
But you've worked here for 15 years.
All right. Here's another one. I was taking a telephone survey and lost track of time.
At 7:30 in the morning, mind you, right?
Right.
And talking along the same lines of that, if you ever want to get excuse from work because you're psychologically not able to do it, I saw a fire truck as I was coming to work, and went home to make sure it wasn't my house.
Boy.
One of the ones I mentioned this morning that was actually kind of funny, it really made some sense, was, I thought about quitting.
Right.
but I changed my mind. So I couldn't.
Perfect. That's a good one.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
All right, I marked off several. These kind of cracked me up. The first one's a little kind of funny. My hamster died. I had to plan for his funeral. You know.
Well, Jen, you could pull off that one.
Right.
I would.
Yeah.
I actually would do that. Like in
One of the
real
birds
life.
I've been feeding for 3 years fell off their feet. Or
Yeah,
I
the
had to take
rabbit
it to
outside.
the
And
vet.
if you don't understand, fuck you.
Right. I planned for his funeral. I had a funeral for the rabbit who died outside my house. You know. Okay, so the next one was
It
I
was
had
a
to.
neighbor.
Right. The next one was I had to wait for the FedEx guy, Richard Simmons, Sweat Into the Oldies DVD arrived today. I can loan it to you if you want.
Just make sure they're, not 350 pounds. That might
Right.
not go over well.
Yes, exactly. Someone was following me, and I drove all around town just trying to lose them. The next one was, my watch was set to Tokyo time. This one cracked me up. So why are you late for work today? You mean I have to show up to work every day? The next one was, is it fall forward or fall back? Why are you late to work today? Well, rowing across the river to work, I got lost in the fog.
Oh, jeez.
This one was kind of funny. I dropped my glass eye down the drain, and I have to wait for someone to come and retrieve it.
Oh, jeez-ish.
Gross.
This next one.
She's almost snorting.
Why are you late to work today? Constipation has made me a walking time bomb.
See, that one you could actually get away with.
You
a
can
little
totally
bit.
get away with that one.
And they'd be like, how much is gross? Just stay home.
Okay.
Yeah, don't come to work.
Yeah. This next one, I was dreaming about basketball, and it went into overtime.
I love that one.
Oh, that one just, I'd laugh my ass off if I heard that.
That was what I had. Go
Can I
ahead.
tell you guys one that I actually told a boss for real?
Yes.
It wasn't because I was late. It's because I wanted to leave early.
Yeah.
And I was done with all my stuff and everything. And he was a pretty cool guy. So I walked up to him. I was like, yeah, I'm having vision problems. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm okay. I just can't see myself here any longer. So are you okay with me leaving? He burst out laughing. He's like, that's cool. You can go.
That's just
That
awesome.
one. To leave early, I can't.
He thought it was hilarious. I just can't see myself being here any longer.
Which is just perfect. It really is. It is good.
True. Yeah.
Okay. Well, since I just picked off, I'm just going to read from the top down since we're going to read these a few times in a row. So, is it spring forward or spring back?
Yes.
Kind of along with the fall thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I made the mistake of letting in some Jehovah's Witnesses, and they wouldn't leave.
Isn't that true? Yeah.
I most likely will not be coming in today. I spent my last dime playing online bingo, and I don't have any money left for the bus ride. I'll try to win it back today while I'm off. You should have told me to be here on time.
Oh.
What? You mean I had to be here on time?
Right. I can just show up when I feel like it.
I'm very literal.
Right.
We start about 8. Well, about. I mean,
About
what is that?
Exactly.
It's about.
7:55.
I won't be in work today. Okay, let's start that one over.
Start that over.
I won't be into work today on time. My brain is full. I superglued my eye thinking it was contact solution. Oh, see, now I've heard of that actually happening.
Oh,
That's
boy.
not good. But I don't think they'd argue with you on that one much.
Right.
Probably not.
No.
You could use that.
Yeah, go ahead. Use it up. When I got up this morning, I took 2 X-Lax tablets in addition to my Prozac. I can't get off the commode, but I feel really good about it. I'm just going to finish this page. There's like 4 left. That's all right. It's not my fault. All I need is some more training. Well, okay. I got locked in my trunk by my son. Okay.
Juvenile delinquent.
Little bastard.
Not a Brendan Dassey.
Not at all. I won't be coming into work today. My wife informed me that she is going to conceive today and I really want to be there when it happens. If I was a boss and heard that, I would say, "You go, buddy.
Right.
Go.
You take it. Go twice." Lastly, for me, okay, here we go. I was abducted by aliens. After being transported to their mothership, the aliens decided not to suck out my brains. They sent me back home.
Nice.
I don't know if you were trying to be that elaborate. I'd have come back with, "Why don't you try another one?"
Right.
Another one that people can use that I've actually used is in the moment too. Is you can just say, "I'm having women issues,"
There we go.
but you have to sound pissed off.
Right.
I'm having women issues.
Well,
Yeah, you do have to say that one right.
but it works.
And I
only,
did. And people just cringe.
It
They're
only
like,
works really with a male boss. I have a female boss. She'd be like, "Well, what do you mean?"
be like, none of your fucking business. Not that I've done it with my female bosses, but it was a male boss. But I was irritated that he was drilling me for it. And I was like, I'm having some fucking women issues.
And men
like,
are just like, okay, done.
Yep,
done.
blowing out tampons left and right. What do you want to hear me say?
Right.
They're like, goodbye.
I think for a female boss, though,
you'd have to have a little more detail.
Well, right.
Yeah.
So if you just came up with that, I'm having women issues, and she did come back with, well, what do you mean? I think if you're like, I'm blowing fucking tampons out, okay? I think that would just settle it. I don't think she'd argue back, because whether she ever experienced it that way or not, she'd understand it's possible, and she just let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. But that definitely works with a male boss. Absolutely.
It does.
Yeah. I think I've used that one.
One last story I'll tell. When I drove public transit, I never missed work, and I never called in sick, and I wanted a day off, so I called in, and I said, "Yeah, you can go ahead and put me on the sick list today." "Oh, what's the problem?" I said, "I don't care. Whatever you make up, I'm not going to be there."
Nice.
And they said, "Well, I have to put something down." I said, "Well, whatever you decide is fine with me." And they said,
exploding diarrhea?
Well, they said, both ends? Sounds good to me. I didn't really care, because I never called in sick or anything. It didn't matter to me. I'm not coming into work today. Yeah. And this is the only way I can get out of it, so here you go.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
So, end of story. Get called in the office and say, "You feeling right?" "Oh, yeah, much better."
Yeah.
Not a big deal.
Exactly. But,
So I don't know, this was good stuff. This is funny. I mean, so yeah, we got several pages left of this.
We'll do some more next time.
Funny excuses for being late by youcanbefunny.com. And I would just Google them if you want to see some of their other stuff, because I'm not going to spell it this stupid address.
Nice.
It's got hashtags, or not hashtags, but hyphens
dashes and
shit
hyphens,
in it.
and I can't say all that right
No,
now.
I'm not going to say that shit. We're at a 1:42 for our time.
Oh, way over the hour mark. Sorry.
No, it's
Sorry, everyone.
We anticipate to go 1.5, so we're not too bad here. So yeah, I don't have anything else to say at this point with the
Avery case.
The Avery case.
Yeah.
Almost called the Brendan Dassey thing. Making a Murder. We got through just to be clear, episodes 3 and 4. I'm sure we've touched on 5 and a few things in the future, but our next podcast we'll talk about 5 for sure, and we'll probably watch 6 at least before we get to that. Yeah. And then we'll review that a little bit and talk some more about it.
I just want to reiterate that people that haven't watched it and are commenting, you need to stop your mouth and watch it, and do it. I encourage anybody that did watch it to do the opposite research. Yeah. Look at the Ken Kratz shit that's going on right now. Look at what he's saying about all this supposed other evidence that they haven't included. Try to find out what that is, because that's the important thing as an armchair investigator.
Right.
Which is what they keep calling everybody like us and, people that are looking at this. But that's why there's, over 200,000 plus people supporting this, because it's pretty obvious that there's a problem. Right. And the only way to correct that is to put public pressure on the appropriate areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be, I don't know, do you have something else to say, Charlotte?
I'm good. I just want to say thanks for listening.
Great. And before we depart here, the only thing I'm going to add is it'll be sad if Stephen Avery doesn't have the correction that's necessary here for what happened. It will be sad. But in the imperfect world that we have, I think the best thing that we can never go for is that moving forward, it doesn't happen this way anymore.
Exactly. Exactly.
It is going to be sad, though, if somebody actually does lose their life over this, and losing their life doesn't mean have to die. I mean, going to jail for nothing is losing your life, and that's pretty much what we're seeing at this point.
Right, but even which I hope that does not happen. But even if it does, Steve and Avery, I want you to know that leading your life as an example for the rest of society to change.
Absolutely, because he's sticking by his guns and being honest, and I hope he hangs on to that. I really do.
We believe in you.
Yeah. If that's the situation, I mean, I there's not too many people I ever want to talk to in the world. I'd go sit and talk to this guy.
Oh, I totally go talk to him.
Just to be able to read him at face to face.
Yep.
But I think we'd end up viewing the same thing we've seen on tape, in my opinion, at this point. But,
I agree.
Well, if that's all we have, as Cheryl pointed out, thanks for listening. We appreciate your time. And by all means, leave those comments. And again, as a reminder, keep them constructive and positive. And if you're going to ask questions, you're going to get answers that are of at least one person out of the three of us. And it may not be necessarily accurate or anything, but you can always type those questions into Google and find them for yourself. So, as Jenny pointed out many times, investigate on your own.
Research.
Thanks again for listening. We will see you again probably at least within a week, and we'll discuss 5 and 6.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.